And if you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag is on the side of the wall.
We can't see it. It's right there under the side of the wall. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cherry, would you do roll call?
Erica Connor.
Here.
Mary D. Moore.
Here.
Joel Fredericks. Here. Andy Mankey.
Here.
Art Schneider.
Here.
Vita Schwartz.
Here.
Greg Burtz.
Here.
Jill Warner. Here. Jerry Winchowski here.
This is an open meeting and has been noted as such. We'll start with citizens' comments. We have one that was emailed in from Ron Roberts. Members of the board, it is very important that this board act to implement policies to protect our children from the lies and misinformation of CRT that is being foisted on districts by the very well-funded efforts of leftist organizations. To do nothing is to allow it to happen. It should be totally banned, and at the very least, it should be required that all such teaching be only with knowledge and permission of the parent. Sincerely, Ron Roberts. Okay, and then we will move on to consent agenda. I'm looking for the approval of board minutes of May 24th, 2021, as well as approval of voucher numbers 133143 to 133681, totaling the amount of $4.5 million in change, and receipts for May 2021 totaling $700 and roughly $16,000, as well as approval of the PVMS extended trip proposal. Do I have any questions or concerns? Hearing none, it is approved by consent. And then we will move into our presentations and welcome our new student reps. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome.
Why don't you introduce yourselves real quick and then you can jump into your report.
I'm Michael Kaczynski.
I'm Kayla Willman. I'm a senior. The Mukwonago boys tennis team won the Classic 8 for the first time in program history on Friday, June 4th. The team went on to be sectional runner-up, and 6 players qualified for individual state, which is another program record. MHS junior Max Morbeck was selected as a National Youth Advisory Board member for the Sandy Hook Promise. MHS Save was awarded a national award entitled the Save Promise Club Award. Congratulations to the 7 singers from 8th grade choir who have been accepted by a rigorous audition process into the Wisconsin School of Music Association 2021 Middle Level Honor Choir. These amazing singers competed against hundreds of other middle schoolers to gain a coveted spot in this year's ensemble. They will perform at the end of October at the Wisconsin Music Teachers Convention in Madison. Parkview completed the year with numerous end-of-the-year school-wide celebrations. The 8th grade students celebrated their conclusion of 8th grade with an end-of-the-year celebration. Parkview 8th grade students formally ended the year with an 8th grade awards night. Parkview Middle School was proud to be recognized as a Project Lead the Way distinguished school. PVMS received this recognition for the 4th consecutive year, one of only 2 middle schools in Wisconsin and one of only 27 in the country to earn this distinction. The Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction and Wisconsin RTI Center recently recognized Parkview Middle School for its implementation of math, reading, and behavior supports at the gold level for successfully building a school-wide, equitable multi-system of supports aimed at closing achievement gaps. Parkview is one of only 3 middle schools in the state of Wisconsin to be recognized at the gold level in math, reading, and behavior. Congratulations to the PVMS students who participated in the Han Geography Bee. They performed well and faced extreme challenges in the questions.
All right, and then for Clarendon Elementary School, they were the first elementary school in MASD to be recognized by the Wisconsin RTL Center in the areas of reading and behavior at the gold level and math at the silver level. This recognition reflects their dedication to improving student outcomes. These multi-level systems of support help increase consistency of instruction, enhance staff skills, provide for all learners, and build stronger relationships. Congratulations, Clarendon. Clarendon also announced their Coins for College scholarship winners for 2021. Please congratulate Garrett Schindler and Mark Menning. Garrett will attend Bethel, majoring in engineering, and Mark will attend Marquette, majoring in business. Thank you to the Coins for College Committee and the generosity of Clarendon families for making these scholarships possible. Best wishes to Garrett and Mark. Clarendon's 6th graders brought their books to life during the Wax Museum They impressed staff and students with their knowledge, creativity, and costumes based on a character from their book. The track team ended their season with a track meet. Congrats to all the 5th and 6th graders who participated. Shout out to all the coaches and volunteers who made this event so much fun. Wacky Olympic Day was a blast. All students participated in 3 rotations, which included hippity hop races, throwing rubber chickens, and tire races. It was a great day for students to spend time together and highlight their sportsmanship. For Prairie View Elementary School, during the first week of summer adventure, Mrs. Mack and her Soaring with Flying Machines students began exploring the basic components of flight. Students were able to virtually meet with scientist Charles Oistreich. He shared his flight and design engineering experience as a team member who designs and tests robotics on the International Space Station. He encouraged students to embrace teamwork and focus on math and science skills. Next week, students will be applying their knowledge of flight to create their own kites. Mrs. Mack and her junkyard science students have been creating some really interesting and functional levers from their classroom junkyard. Students are also able to classify their levers and identify the fulcrum, effort arm, and resistance arm with their creation. Groups have been challenged to build a lever that can consistently move a load of 36 inches. Their creativity and ingenuity is inspiring. And then finally, for Section Elementary School, on June 8th, they held the Section Extravaganza. During this event, 4th through 6th grade students participated in playground Olympic events, which included a 21 basketball tournament with the winning team playing against the staff. In the afternoon, the K through 3 students enjoyed inflatables that were set up in the gym, which included a 60-foot obstacle course, hoop shot, home run derby, and a giant slide. And constructed in 1982, the wooden play structure had been a fixture of the playground of its section. Unfortunately, the playground set had reached its life expectancy, and on Thursday, June 9th, the play set was taken down, making room for a new playground to be installed at the end of the month. As a final goodbye to the structure, the 6th grade class had an opportunity to sign their name and date the structure before it was taken down.
Thank you. Okay, and then we will move on to the Bray Architects Long Range Facility presentation.
So everybody can grab a seat somewhere down here. We'll transition down there, and then we'll begin just in a moment here.
What's that? One hip replacement, one broken foot. Yeah. Let's just roll.
Thank you.
What's that, Andy?
All right, well, good evening. I'm Clint Selly with Bray Architects. Thanks for allowing us to spend the evening with you. Eric Schmidt is also here from CG Schmidt. He's been in on many of the meetings as we've kind of been working through this process as well. Again, we've been meeting with the district for a while now. Very frequently, I would say, since the winter, about every other week. Again, just kind of building, I think, the backbone of what you're going to see tonight. Looks good. And so, again, we kind of want to present a very high-level overview of where we stand today with this process. And again, to give you a little bit of insight, and then really kind of talk about some next steps as we go through this process. So there's going to be 4 major components we look at tonight: educational capacity analysis, grade configuration options, building programs, master plan pathways. So again, there's quite a bit of detail behind each of these. So again, this is going to be a pretty high-level overview, and as we meet with you in the future, we can drill down into some of the specifics, but again, wanted to give you an update on a number of these. So educational capacity analysis, there we go. Just real quick, just a quick district at a glance. Again, I'm sure many of you are familiar with your buildings, but our elementary buildings down to middle school, high school, the grades served within the schools, again, primarily were a K-6 at the elementary level, 7-8 here, and then 9-12 at the high school. And then, again, some of the dates of construction of these. Again, these dates, we always seem to be chasing our tails because in our world, we look at the drawings and what date shows up on the drawings, which might have been the date that, you know, they were finished being drawn, and then there's always the dispute of when it was finished. So we might be a year or two off what we show here, but again, general idea of where we're at. Again, really thankful to be part of the high school project in 2018. And then we did help with the secure entries at a couple of the elementary schools in 2019. Educational capacity analysis, and Kurt Wiebelhaus is here, and I know he led an effort through this a couple of years ago. So we're kind of updating that, or just taking a fresh look at that. As we look at it, there's a number of different ways that you can calculate capacity. Just 3 of the most common ones we see are square foot per student. Number 2 is class size and utilization, and number 3 is gross building size. Just again, kind of a number of different ways to go about that. We really believe kind of the best way to evaluate is looking at class size and utilization. So specifically looking at the buildings, specifically looking at the room usages that you want to do. And when we talk about this, this is educational capacity, not building capacity. So trying to dictate, again, on a day-to-day basis, how many students do we want to educate in the buildings for the best use for the students. So I'm going to go, again, we're going to go through this pretty quickly, but again, just to kind of show you a general update and kind of some of the methodology. At the elementary level, this is pretty simple. We typically will look at each of the grade level classrooms, so first grade classrooms, second grade classrooms, and in this case, again, working with the district on what class sizes we would like on an ideal perspective for each of those, and really just add those up. It's pretty simple at the elementary level. We don't take into consideration the gymnasium. We don't take into consideration art rooms and special ed rooms and stuff like that, because those are where the students are pretty much starting out in their, again, first grade classroom and then moving to those spaces and coming back. So again, elementary, we're really looking at those grade level classrooms. Again, going through this process, a first grade classroom might become a second grade classroom the following year. It might be an art classroom. So again, the analysis is somewhat of a moment in time. And again, so we evaluated the rooms kind of based on how they were used, I believe, from the 2000, sort of the pre-COVID year. So the analysis would not take into effect, kind of what happened over the course of the last year. As we look at middle school, high school, a little bit differently, a different analysis. There's many more rooms to consider. The class schedule is much different. Again, we don't have a sort of point in time where everybody's in their homeroom generally. So many times they're spread throughout the buildings. So we have to consider, all of the different spaces in terms of how many students could possibly be in those. So Again, these are the numbers we worked with the district to determine. Obviously, as you can see, if you would say, well, we want smaller class sizes of 25, that will definitely change our capacities of our buildings, or the other way, we're going to shove 36 kids, and we're not going to do that. But if we say we're going to show more, that's going to also affect the capacity of the buildings. High school, same story. Again, there's a number of different spaces in here, and you can see, again, specific to that building, we took into consideration, the various gym spaces and fitness spaces and so forth that are again, unique and special about the high school, as well as, there we go, some of the specialist spaces as well within the building. So as I said, elementary is relatively simple. It's a number of students per grade level per classroom. That one's pretty easy. The middle high school, we apply what's kind of a utilization rate that helps us to dictate, again, an ideal scenario of how these spaces are being used. So the analysis we used for Mukwonago in this case is at the middle school level, again, in its simplest form, and I think the class schedule is much more complicated than that, but the way we kind of simplified it down is that there's roughly kind of a four-ish period per day. Again, it's a little more complicated than that. And we said that the utilization would be 3 out of 4 periods that would be used, 75. The way we distilled the high school level was 8 periods out of the day, and we used 6 as the kind of the utilization for that. So this 75% here is kind of what then goes into the calculation for the occupancy, meaning, again, it's not every single seat in every single room is being utilized. There's off periods. There's times where the rooms are empty because the teacher has a prep period or lunch and those types of things. So again, the part of the calculation for this. So again, this is a very high-level, quick overview then of kind of the summary for that information. So here you see kind of the calculation of that methodology too. This was the 2021 enrollment, and then some of the general, basically showing we were, just under capacity for most of the elementaries, or very near capacity in some instances, and then the middle school, high school, showing some room. Now again, this can be very much debatable, and depending on how we swing the pendulum of those class sizes. If we want smaller class sizes, and that's a goal, that certainly brings that number down. If our utilization would change, it also can affect that. So again, some data to provide a backbone for this process. The next thing we looked at with the administration team was grade configuration options. So again, we'll return to our district at a glance information. So again, operating as a K-6, 7, 8, 9, 12 district. What are some other possibilities that we would consider? So again, the top one here is our current configuration, and we really didn't explore any other options for the high school. I think the district is pleased with the 9-12 model for the high school. So again, we did not bring that to the table here. But again, some of the things that were considered is going to a K-5 type strategy here, which would take our middle schools to a 6-8, or even going to a K-4 model, which would either have us be at 1 or 2 5-8 buildings, or possibly going to a model of a 5th, 6th grade intermediate and a 7th and 8th grade middle school. Again, there might be other scenarios we would want to explore. We could look at a pre-primary type situation where you maybe go, K through 2 or K through 3 and split things up a little bit differently. But I think in terms of the way we discussed it with the admin team, just in terms of the starting point for this process, we sort of felt like these might be the most logical ones to initially consider for the district. Some other considerations as we went through this process is 4K. So we do have 4K currently in a few of the buildings, in the elementary buildings within the district, but there are, most of the program is in partner sites throughout the community. So as we go through this process, as we master plan out for the future, what is the future goal for 4K? Is that something we would like to integrate into more or all of the elementary buildings as we go forward? Or is that something we want to preserve within the partner site locations? The other consideration is all-day 4K. Again, that is something we're seeing gaining more and more momentum throughout the state. We imagine at some point in time that's probably going to be the norm versus the rarity. So again, do we plan for that, or what is the future plan to accommodate that, if that is something that, that again is mandated at who knows when in the future? My personal guess is that's something, you know, more of the declining or steady enrollment districts are going to start to offer and likely force the hand of many others. Again, that's my personal editorial on it, but again, it's something we're having more and more discussions with that in a number of different districts. A couple other things, the expansion of the tech ed program at the high school. Again, very proud of the work we did over there back in 2018 and the successes of that. And I know the staff over there is looking for some opportunities to expand that program and continue on the successes there. Similarly, the family and consumer ed area, the kitchen areas within the school specifically, that program has been extremely successful. I think I toured through there maybe it was a year ago, and they, well, it must have been more than a year, but they said they're teaching 12 sections in an 8-period day. And you say, how do you teach 12 sections in an 8-period day? And they said, exactly. So we know that's an area that's been very successful and has some need. The next two, print media center and district operations and maintenance. Those are two areas within the high school, a bit in direct response to the two sections above that, you know, again, as an admin team, we've kind of looked at those. Are they best suited to continue to function and operate out of the high school? Or is that a solution to free up some space within the high school to maybe address some of those items up above, whether it's tech ed, or actually a couple of the items below this as well. So the other programs that we've discussed, where they should be located, what type of space they need, are the 18 to 21-year-old program, SOAR, and then some thoughts about creating an employee clinic for the district. So again, this tonight was intended to be a bit of a high-level overview. Again, the goal is to kind of get to the last section. So I do have one more section before, but I do want to pause here just to, I guess, open it up to see if you had any questions. So again, within a lot of these discussions, and again, there's tons of detail in these documents, but what we've been working with the district, and I do applaud the admin's attention to detail and thoroughness in looking through these, is for those different grade configuration options and some of those other things. We've gone through and created a kind of a sample or draft building program, and I obviously did not include these today. There's a number of different programs for each of the elementary various options. So this is again the title page from the K4 option, the K5 option, and then this K4 through 5th, and then this was without K4, so K5 through 5th grade. So again, kind of all of those different configurations, as well as the middle school configurations, we tried to create an ideal program situation. So in essence, it's really sort of almost looking at what a new facility look like in each of these instances, or creating a building program for what we think a new elementary school would look like, or a new middle school would look like. And what that eventually will allow us to do is obviously, if a new building were considered, we have that, but I think more importantly, as we look at what needs to be done to the current elementary buildings to make them accommodate what the goals are for the spaces, or convert the middle school into some other type of configuration, this is kind of the benchmark that we're sort of working from to develop a solution for that. So Again, we've kind of gone through and created these for, I believe, every different option that we've kind of considered in terms of those different configurations. So that brings us to master plan pathways. So you should have an extra handout because I don't expect you, and I certainly can't read what's up on the board tonight, or right here, a handout with you. I do have this magnified for each various options. But again, working through with the admin team, we've created basically 6 different options. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, 6 different options that explore kind of each one of those grade configurations. So what would sort of be the big move to achieve each of those different considerations? So as we always would in each of these scenarios, there is kind of an option one. I don't want to say this is sort of the status quo option. So this would be basically maintaining the current configuration, but likely as we would go through and look at each of the buildings, we would maybe recommend or take a look at some updates needed. As we walked around the middle school today, obviously some needs within this building. So what do we need to do within this building to continue to function as a 7th and 8th grade facility and meet the needs of the staff and students within this building. Likewise, for the elementary buildings, we would take a look. Again, the buildings function in those capacities now in terms of the configuration, but that would be kind of the plan, is to continue to maintain all existing at current locations. Two A would be to take and create all of the elementary buildings as pre-K through 5th grade, which would make the middle school then a 6th through 8th grade building. I'll start with the middle school. In this particular case, we are saying, taking a look, and I would kind of call this creating a like new scenario where, again, we would make modifications, additions, renovations to this building as necessary to accommodate the 6th grades being added at the middle school. And then again, within each of the elementary schools, this option preserves kind of the 4K locations that currently exist, but then the remainder of the buildings just remain K5s. So Prairie View and Big Bend would be the 2 locations where there would still be 4K. The rest would be 5K through 5th grades. Two B, similar situation. We're going with pre-K 5s at the elementary buildings, 6, 8 at the grade school. The only difference here is that we are showing that every single elementary building would have a provision for 4K. And then in this particular situation, we are showing that Eagleville would close. So Eagleville would no longer be an elementary school. So each of the capacities then that we're showing for the remaining elementary school buildings would need to respond to that, get a little bit larger to accommodate the loss of that facility. So again, middle school 6, 8, elementaries are all 4K through 5th grade. All right, so this is where things I get a little bit more, I guess, a little more unique. This consideration would be, as I described, would be to take 5th and 6th grade and create an intermediate school. So our elementaries would be pre-K through 4, and in this case we are showing all of them as 4K. Again, in the theory in this is if we do remove two grade levels out, we are freeing space up, quite a bit of space within each of those schools, so they should have room for 4K. We're suggesting here that this building would become the 5th, 6th grade intermediate, and then we would create a new 7th and 8th grade middle school. The thought behind that is, as you saw and we kind of described, some of the amenities within this building in terms of being a newer and modern middle school. It would give us the ability to really respond to that from the 7th and 8th grade level with a new building. And then this building as a 5th and 6th grade building would likely function well in that capacity. Again, would still need work, would still need renovations and updates. But again, the theory, that could obviously flip. The 5th and 6th graders could get the nice new building, and the 7th and 8th graders could remain here again with updates. (4A) is, again, pre-K through 4th grade at the elementary level, 5th and 8th grade, or 5th through 8th grade middle school. In this case, we're showing one middle school as a 5th through 8th grader. This would be a very large building. That would be a very, very large building. It'd be about 1,600 students, again, roughly about the same size as the high school. That would be a pretty big building for this site, given some of the current challenges you have on this site. Again, all the elementaries as 4K through 4th grade, and then again, Eagleville is coming offline in this situation here. Kind of recognizing that configuration would create a very large building here. This next option, 4B, again, basic same concept in terms of the grade configuration, but in this case, we would suggest two 5th through 8th grade buildings. So again, this building could get renovated and updated to be one 5th through 8th grade building, and then we would create a new 5th through 8th grade building somewhere else in the community. So again, that would roughly be about 800 students per building in that particular case. So I'm going to pause there kind of before we go to next steps. Again, this is kind of a first pass of things in terms of, I think, some various options we thought were at least worth discussing, worth having the conversation. There's likely 10 other ones that we could dream up today if we sat here long enough and thought about it. So again, kind of open it up to any questions you guys might have about any of the options. I mean, in other districts throughout the state? Yep, yeah, that's, I would say the two most common types of school districts are either a 6-8 middle school or a 5-8 middle school throughout the state. Yes, yes. I mean, She asked, do we see two, right, other districts throughout the state where they're running two 5-8 buildings? Yeah, I mean, again, I think when you're looking at the size of the building, that's really what we're sort of, we do not see any 1,600 5-8 buildings. So that's why, again, this might be a terrible idea for Mukwonago. We're showing it. So again, when you kind of go back, I would say no, there are not any 1,600 student 5-8s as far as I'm aware of, but there are certainly. Two 800 student middle schools is actually a pretty good efficient number for a middle school. If you said, what's a good size for a middle school, that's a pretty good size where you have full-time staff at all of the various positions that you'd have. Oconomowoc. A bit. I think it's again we kind of look at These numbers are the existing capacities. So Eagleville is a unique situation. It's a, you know, we would refer to it kind of as a one-track school. So there's one classroom per grade level within it. And again, as we kind of look at the remainder of the school, again, in terms of a efficient elementary model that, again, kind of roughly 400 to 600 student elementary is where you get the most efficiency in terms of full-time staff for special ed, art, PE. That roughly translate to a 3-section or 3-track or 4-track elementary, just to give you a frame of reference. So, you know, 4 first grades, second grades, and so on. I believe with this size, we were closer to the 3-track for most of those considerations, with that roughly 400 student scenario. Again, I'd have to double check, but no, we haven't gotten quite that far yet. No. It's been the question was how much of staff and administration. We've mainly worked with the admin team. So you know, pupil services, special ed, Sean, Andy, Tom, and their group. I mean, Sean, have you kind of, what conversations have you had with I guess staff or admin within the building at the building level? Yeah, and I think part of showing it to you too is, again, you know, we would never consider option, you know, 2B, like that's, you know, as a board, we wouldn't be comfortable with, you know, X or I think more importantly is we're still very much at this information gathering kind of, I don't want to say throwing mud at the wall type situation, but really just testing and exploring different options at this point in time. Because again, as we go through this process, I'm sure community members will say, hey, did you think about, and hopefully you're able to say, yep, that was option 4B. And again, we'll go through this process and talk about pros and cons, and you know, yep, that was option 4B, but we didn't consider it because it created more busing, and we didn't want to add another building, and you know, X, Y, and Z. You know, that we'll kind of be able to talk to as talking points. So, again, very much at the early stages of this overall process. Any other questions? I guess, yes. Well, like a phasing. Yeah, I mean, I think part of why we go through this process is so that we do know what the pathway is. So, you know, if we do know what this building is going to become. So, for example, we don't renovate a wing of the building and then, you know, 2 years from now convert it to something, you know, then it becomes a 5-6, for example. Again, I'm not saying that's happening. But again, part of the pathway is finding that path. And then, yes, that will allow us to prioritize and figure out or phase how this is going to be implemented. Again, most districts can't do everything in one fell swoop. So again, we have to figure out a way to get there and allow this to guide your decisions over the next, again, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Just kind of, I guess, inviting a little bit of dialogue. Is there any configuration of grades or anything maybe you've heard or thought of for maybe what this would look like to, I don't know, create whatever would be option 5A or whatever? Or does this, again, kind of going back to this initial slide,
This is the first time you all see this, correct?
yes. Understood, completely understand. And again, that's why we kind of kept things high level today too, is to just, but again, just asking the question if there was anything else, again, as we kind of go through this process, we can kind of work through to have that prepped for you guys next time. But there's trust me, there's plenty of here and plenty of variations to look at and consider with each of these options as we have it now. I could get you a list off the top of my head. We're doing one right now in West De Pere. I believe that Oregon School District has one. I can get you a list of that off the top. Okay. Again, very high level, then just kind of the next steps. We're going to continue to develop these options that we have here. Like I said, I think we're going to start to talk through, again, at the admin level, some of the pros and cons of each of them. Again, to just start working through that. And next time we meet with you, again, I'm sure we'll share some of that and get your input on that. CG Schmidt is going to start to help, again, at a very, very high level, just start to provide some preliminary budgeting for some of the efforts that we're looking at within each of these. And then, again, at a very high level, like Tom said, in terms of the financing and some of that stuff, start to talk about, you know, I mean, are we talking, is this something doable over 5 years? Is this 10 years? Is this 15 years? Just, again, very high level. What are some of our options that we can consider for some of these items? Thank you guys very much.
Okay, so we are going to move into our student learning committee, our committee updates.
My computer went timed out.
Okay.
All right, so on our, it has safety.
We're doing that in action items.
Okay. Okay, we went over the CTE partnerships, which we're going to do in action items. We looked over some policies, which we have no changes to. And we approved what you approved earlier, the Washington DC trip. And we have the director's report regarding virtual.
Yeah, so I did want to give, I gave an update at Student Learning Committee on where we were at after opening registration for the virtual school for possibly the 2021-2022 school year. I wanted to give an update to the full board tonight. We are only at 21 high school students, 912, who have registered, and I guess we're looking for a little bit of direction from the board again. As far as if we stay with those numbers. So I do want you to know that we've put it out there multiple times to the community. We actually put out and contacted current open enrolled students, 912, who are leaving our district, and communicated with them on the option to start this to get people in. We communicated with the 50, wasn't 50 families probably, but 50 students who had originally expressed interest in the 912 when we did the original survey. And we're still sitting at an enrollment of 21 currently tonight. So we're looking for a little bit of a direction if we stay there. I can't say at 21 that financially, nor I'm sure will Tom, say that that is probably incredibly feasible for the district. We're looking in July by Student Learning Committee to give an update again and start to make some decisions, just because we either need to start hiring and moving in that direction or not. But at 21, we're questioning whether or not the board would support not moving in that direction at that point or continuing in that direction as a long-term goal.
So when you need to hire some teachers for this, correct?
Correct.
And when is that time to do that or not do that?
Yep.
And you don't want to tell these teachers, you know what, thanks, but we're not going to do it.
Right.
Or is it too late for that? Or we hired the teachers?
No, we have not done any hiring for the position yet, so we're not in that situation. I guess, like for instance, the next student learning, we had to push back, so it's on Monday, July 12th. I would not want to build a successful program, go past mid-July too much in order to have a program that we're going to be proud of launching it.
We've been through our options quite a bit as far as I'm concerned. We have to make a decision when, Stephanie?
Mid-July,
Okay.
The Student Learning Committee is on July
July
12th.
12th.
Okay.
And so we'd like to decide at that time, if we're going to move forward or not. With those 21 students, we will explore options with those families to provide virtual instruction. It just probably will not be the Mukwonago virtual program. It will be looking at outside options.
When we, as a board, were talking about it, I mean, we were trying to shut off all the people that were leaving our district,
Right.
and they've got no interest.
So we sent out, I think, identified, what will be 60-some families, 9,
Yeah.
12. We have not had anyone come back in that registration.
Really?
You know, I do think realistically it takes time to build that and a reputation they're going to be comfortable with, because I mean, if they're comfortable with where they're at, I'm sure the discussions in the household would be, let's finish up there and then we
Right.
build it as we go, but it's to what end financially are we going to do that to build a program,
Right.
versus say, there's just not enough interest at this
I
point in
mean,
time.
that was our whole goal, and
Right.
and if we're not
Right.
doing that, I don't know the reason for doing.
Well, I
Online.
agree with Stephanie that we probably will not be able to convince too many of those 9, 12 virtual students to come back to our MHS virtual program, but what we want to do is start preventing them from leaving. So if we have a family that's in 8th grade going into 9th grade for next year, they're not going to go to E-Achieve in Waukesha
Right.
or McFarland or one of the other options. They're going to come to our program instead.
Stephanie, what are the, you said there's 21. Are they all freshmen? Are they, what is the divide?
I would need to get you the breakdown. I could do that tomorrow. I don't have it in front of me, but it's pretty evenly divided, I think, with, 4 here, 5 here.
How many do we need for it to be financially feasible?
Um,
5 up top for the same question?
For full-time staff, I think we were thinking 50 if we were going to hire a full-time social studies, science, English, and mathematics instructor. Correct me if I'm wrong, 50?
Yeah,
Stephanie?
so we had thought 50 to be financially viable probably, and again, you had capped it at 125 because we didn't think we could provide a decent program that first year over that. Yeah, we're a ways from that right now.
Yeah.
Stephanie, do you have any comparison to how our potential enrollment is comparing to other districts?
In the virtual?
In virtual, yeah. I mean, aren't you a little surprised? Aren't we a little surprised after all we've been through that now we're down to the final analysis, and where we were screaming to provide a quality education, we did the best we could, and I think we did a good job at it. Now, when there's an opportunity, it's like nobody wants to do it.
I
find that interesting.
Clearly we expected more,
Yeah.
and had an interest in more. I do question, I mean, when I really stand back and think about it, maybe the timing is really not right because of the nationwide backlash of what happened and a recognition that face-to-face is better for many kids. So maybe we're presenting it at the complete inopportune time to head that direction after what happened in the spring of 2020.
Is there any work that we can do to advance the program without actually offering the program?
Or is there a way that we can staff
In your
for
microphones,
that
please, we
many?
can't hear you guys. We could not staff with full-time teachers at all with that many. Advancing the program, my brain is flying right now, and I'm just not sure I have an answer for you right now on that.
Well, I think what we would do differently is start sooner, start marketing,
Sure.
advertising in the fall for the following school year that we are starting a virtual program. So I think there's some, if we do not move forward this year, we're going to have a conversation about maybe initiating this conversation much earlier in the school year for 22-23 then.
Kayla.
Would it be viable to hire staff that could teach both in person and online, and would that be more feasible financially?
We absolutely could look at that with overloads of teachers to go in that direction.
Didn't we have something for the kids that got sent home? There was 2 different ways of doing it. They could have a full-time at home, and then we had a setup where the kids that got quarantined, though they were actually taught by their same teachers.
So the
Is it
live
like a-
streaming, I
Is it like a
don't
hybrid
think that we
system
want to
that-
go in the direction of continuing to consistently have our face-to-face teachers live streaming. I do think that that took away from teachers did a fantastic job with it, but it was hard to split those. But through overloads, we could look at teachers who would agree to teach some virtual classes in addition to their face-to-face responsibilities.
I mean, if you're going to grow it, the best thing to do it, if we want to do it, is to do it slowly. That seems like the most logical way to do it, is to start out with a hybrid and then gradually work your way up. You'll learn a lot of lessons. You'll get a lot of it out of the way when you learn all those lessons when there's 50 kids instead of 500.
Sure.
If we want to do it.
I don't think you want to Band-Aid it, though. I mean, 21 kids, let's move on. Let's talk about July 12th. We can hypothesize all night. We keep this thing rolling, is that okay?
Yeah, it seems like if the demand isn't necessarily there, then is the supply necessary? So, I mean, if you guys have strong feelings either way, come to Learning Committee on the 12th, and we'll kind of see what the update on numbers are, if it changes at all, and finish hashing it out.
Does anybody have a strong opinion as to whether we want to do it at all?
Well,
If we had say we had the 50. we're at
well,
50.
again, it was before this whole COVID thing. We were losing them to the online schooling. And so our job is to try to keep our money here.
Yeah.
And so it was a great idea, but it's not a great
COVID.
idea at this time. And I think it's got a lot to do with the timing and stuff. So I would not pursue it now.
I
even
think
though
there's a
was
virtual
big-
fatigue for sure, that maybe it's not a no, but maybe it's a not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Everybody got their
Definitely.
taste of
I
it, and
think
now
it
they're
al-
like, nope.
I think it also says something about our teachers.
Yeah, but the kids
Absolutely.
are.
I honestly believe that. I mean, we've learned a lesson. Okay.
And please know that if the decision is not to continue it, we will work with families that still have medical issues possibly headed into the fall based on vaccinations. We'll work with those families to figure out something that works for them. Okay, anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to Personnel Committee. Okay, Mary?
All right, personnel, we went over some policies. We don't have any changes or updates to bring to you. We did talk about staff compensation plans we talked about staff compensation plans for next year. And just on a high level, and we'll be going into more detail later. And then we went over the HR director search, which will be coming up at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. All right, and then Finance and Facility Committee update, Jill.
We reviewed policies again, and there's a key policy that Tom's requesting a change on, which I believe is an action item that gives him a threshold ceiling to not seek competitive bids on items now up to $150,000. I see that you changed that, so
Yep.
that will be an action item. It makes your life a lot easier. This has to do with the additional ESSER funds that are available for him to make purchasing decisions on technology and supplies. Is that
Correct,
right?
yep.
Okay. Let's see, Tom gave us also an update on Fund 73 investment for third quarter. Everything is on track. I think one of the biggest changes you're also making is we're moving to offering individual employee account access, which will, I think, help make our employees more invested in what they will secure at the end of their retirement. Is that a fair
Yes,
statement?
yes.
So, and hopefully make your job a little easier too.
I think so.
Right. And then we had budget reviews on the current budget. Everything's in great shape and no surprises. We have everything Tom has everything under control at this point in time. And then he gave us another prelim on next year's budget, which is, there's a lot of changes that could come. We're making some assumptions right now that there's not going to be any huge increases in state funding, and we're going to have to live with that and decide how we spend it. Miss anything?
No, you got it all, Jill.
Anybody have any questions for Tom on any of that? Oh. Do you want anything you want to add?
No, I guess I would just add that in terms of this current budget year, we're in a good spot. We came in underneath. Our revenues came in as expected. Our expenses came under in some areas, and if you have questions on those, I can give answers. Looking ahead, we do have opportunities as we talk about compensation plans for next year and indefinitely. There's an opportunity there to do that. So despite the fact that we are not getting increased funding at the state level, more than likely, like that's not a done deal yet, but it seems somewhat likely, at least in my opinion, we still have a chance to make some moves there. So things are looking good right now, financially speaking.
All right, thank you. We will move right into action items. We have appointments, resignations, and retirements.
So it's very appropriate that we're at Parkview tonight because we have two longtime Parkview middle school teachers that are going to be leaving us due to retirement, and so we want to congratulate Lucy Jensen and Jeff Hopper. Both have decided to retire. They have been here several years. I'm sorry, I don't know how many years, but I can tell you that they've done a fantastic job with our students. And so congratulations to Lucy and Jeff. We do have some resignations. Kalina Ziller, occupational therapist, Joe Dathy, special education teacher, and Emily Deck, music teacher. And should I continue on with the appointments? We have several.
We can do this one right away. Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion. I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay.
My only question is are we on track from a hiring standpoint to the best of your knowledge at this point in time for what you're trying to replace?
Yep, we're in good shape. I can't say enough about our principals, our assistant principals, Christine and her staff. They have really worked hard this spring and early summer to keep up with all the hiring that we've had to do, and we've really brought in a lot of good people. We're excited to have them join us in the near future, and I can read some of those names right now if you'd like.
Well, we have a motion and a second
sorry.
already on the table, so let's just quick vote on that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, motion carries. Now appointments.
Yep. So our appointments: Grace Ports, English Language Arts at Parkview Middle School; Amber Karch, Prairie View Elementary 4K teacher; Chris Ann Wills, Eagleville Elementary, cross-categorical special education and homebound instructor; Madeline Peterson, business education teacher at MHS; Riley Roberson, general music teacher at Prairie View. On the back side, Bailey Abers, school psychologist for Prairie View; Kelly McKenzie, cross-categorical special education instructor at Big Bend; Drew Jensen, science teacher at Mukwonago High School; Catherine Sherrill, work seminar teacher, half-time at MHS; Alexandria Koenig, literacy math interventionist at Rolling Hills; Austin Meyer, special education instructor at MHS; and then Hanan Kaladi, Parkview Middle School, special education instructor. So a lot of people.
Motion.
I have a motion, and I will go ahead and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Fund 73 valuations.
Yeah, so we talked about this at the Finance Committee meeting in May. We didn't take action on that, but we're looking to do that here right now. So every 2 years, we have post-employment benefits that we give out as a part of our compensation package, mostly to our teachers. There's a liability for every school year that passes. If you're getting $1,000 or $1,400 or $1,800 per year of service based on whatever tier you are as a teacher, every year that passes, that liability grows. It's our job as a district to pre-fund those liabilities so we don't put financial stresses on future administrations. So we fund this as we go. We have this valuation done every 2 years. We're currently at an 89% funded status, so we dip down a little bit from where we were. But I think most any school district would gladly trade places with us in terms of what our funding status is. So just to address that real quick, we did in our budget this year, we had $400,000 set aside to fund this, and we did that already. We'll look ahead to, in July, we'll have this conversation again to perhaps transfer a little bit more and get back to that fully funded status. But we're in really good shape. The valuations are something we want to include in our year-end financial statements, so it takes action from the board to just acknowledge that and to say we're going to include these in our year-end statements. So just looking for action on that.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Joel, second, and that is to include the valuations in our year-end financial statements. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. SOAR contract.
Yeah, it's contracts that we sign. We get your permission before we do them. We are looking to extend our contract at the Lillian Rose facility where on the east side of that building is where we house our SOAR program. So we've been there now, I want to say 3 years. The lease ends in July, so we're looking to go ahead and just renew that. The terms of the lease are staying the same. The rates are staying the same. So I think it's more or less just a formality at this point. So looking for your permission to extend this lease one more year.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I second.
I have a motion, Andy, and then second, Cherry. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Support staff handbook updates.
Yeah, so we made some updates over the last several years, and we just lumped them all into an update here of the support staff addendum to just make sure that we're current. Most things are just nothing very material. I would say the changes in the support staff handbook. We just clarified how we award vacation. If there's any questions, I can answer those. I do know that at the Finance Committee meeting, the question was asked in terms of retaining support staff better. Should we pay our staff more often? Currently, we pay all staff every 2 weeks. I inquired with my counterparts throughout Waukesha County, and I heard back from all of them. Most districts pay on the 15th of the month and then the last day of the month, whether that's the 30th or the 31st. A small handful of us pay every 2 weeks, so basically that's 10 months of where you're getting paid twice a month, and then there's 2 months where you're getting paid 3 times a month. So I looked into that, and in terms of like the stress or the added workload that you're putting into paying more often, that it would be, we would change the nature of payroll pretty dramatically for the person who does that for our district. It would become much more burdensome. This Friday, for example, we have a payroll that we're running. We have to submit that to the bank by noon on Wednesday in order for everything to hit the bank accounts on Friday. So if we want to do this more often, it's going to be an undertaking that we can talk about it some more, but it doesn't seem that if it's an idea worth pursuing, we'd be the first ones doing it. We just want to think about that a little bit more. So I just want to address that real quick because I know that we can talk about that again at the Finance Committee level, but I did inquire. Are there any questions I can answer about the support staff handbook for anybody?
Okay. Do we have a motion in a second? We're still talking.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
that
thank you,
way.
Eric.
And I'll
Motion,
second it.
And Jill second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Teacher on-call contract.
So Teachers on Call is our substitute support provider. We've worked with them for just over a decade now. Prior to working with them, we had in-house people get substitute teachers at all of our buildings, but now the norm is to work with somebody to provide our substitute teachers. They do the recruiting, they do the hiring, they do all the behind-the-scenes stuff to make it happen for us. So our 2-year contract with Teachers on Call is coming to a close at the end of August. There aren't too many competitors in this kind of niche market is what I'd call it. There is one. We looked at Edge's staff. They have 500 districts, 500 school districts, nationwide. 3 of them are in Wisconsin. They seem to have some potential, and competition is good here. It helps keep the price honest. But at this point in time, I think I'd like to see more from them, a bigger presence in Wisconsin before we strongly considered making a change. I think the service with Teachers on Call has been pretty good. So there's really no service issue that I'd say is there and that we need to look somewhere else. Teachers on Call is looking to increase their surcharge. So their surcharge was 28%. They're looking to up that to 29%. That's in line with what other school districts in Waukesha County are being charged. So I'm making the recommendation to, in Finance Committee as well, as to approve this contract and extend it for 2 more years.
Do we know what the people that are using the other place are being charged?
that are the other edu staff that are competing, 25%. That's my understanding, so.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2-year extension.
I second it.
Andy, a motion, Sherry, a second. Any other question or discussion?
How difficult is it to get a quote from them?
Say that again, Vito?
How difficult is it to get a quote from them? I mean, actually, what are we paying? I mean, what would we save? Do we know what we would save by getting a competitive bid?
I ballpark it between 20 and 30,000 annually.
Is what we would save?
If
or
we
what we
moved.
pay?
No. If we moved, that would be the savings.
But the service may not be equivalent.
That is correct. I at this point, considering it like here in June, the handful of districts that have worked with EduStaff it's just started. Their relationship is just starting. Before we jump into a business relationship with them, I'd like to see a little bit more to make sure, hey, everything's good. Not having substitute teachers. If you have a shortage, we'd be not doing well as administration if we have empty classrooms with no teacher at the front.
Are we agreeing to a 1 or a 2-year?
2-year, and we did discuss this at length at the committee meeting, because
Gotcha.
we were aware of it, and we just said, let's
Yep.
make sure we're not just doing it because we've always done it.
Yep.
But there's also some value in having a reliability to have our classroom staffed appropriately, so.
So I do,
Doesn't
Vito,
mean
if I
we won't
think,
watch it.
if I understand where you're coming from, yeah, you need to find the best price. You need to look at all your options. Like, I believe
With
in that,
like
we
quality.
do that. But I don't want to make a change for the sake of making change unless the quality of what we're getting is totally there. If it may be, I just want to see some more references. I want to see more them continue and sustain success in Wisconsin, and then
So we're figuring give them 2 years to establish themselves, and then
That's how I see
in
it
a
right
couple
now.
years, we get a good grasp of what other people are seeing,
Yep.
and then go from there. Makes sense.
Yep.
I do have a motion and a second on the table. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Neola Policy 6325.
Yeah, so I am bringing this before the committee, or I'm sorry, to the school board tonight. 6325 is our policy on federal funding and how we procure, how we buy things with the federal funds that we get. We're in line to get some considerable federal funds here over the next couple of school years. Right now, there's 5 categories of purchasing, and there's 2 of the methods are informal purchasing. So if we buy anything less than $10,000, we don't need to get quotes. Now, we typically always do. There's almost no reason why we wouldn't get quotes unless there was just a one-time product or a one-time service that only one entity provides. So micro-purchasing is when we purchase things that are under $10,000. Small purchases is what we're addressing right now. Small purchases is our old policy said anything above 10,000 but less than 20 would tell our policy states that we need to get an adequate number of prices or quotes. So adequate, it doesn't have a specific number to it, but we're always getting 3, at least always getting 3. Under federal law, we can set the high end of that up to $250,000. Once we start spending over $20,000, we would start to get into the formal procurement processes, and that would ask us, the next step there is to start doing sealed bids. When we get federal funds, and some of the things that we've done already here are, when we buy Chromebook chargers so that we can convert on a snow day or a cold day to a virtual day and not to have kids come back in the summertime. We don't need to do sealed bids to get Chromebook chargers. We don't need to get sealed bids to do Chromebooks. You can get those quotes in less than an hour from a number of sources. So what I'm asking to do here is to change this policy so that our small purchases goes up to $150,000. When we start to buy things in aggregate that are over $150,000, that's when sealed bids become something that we would do. So in looking around, I talked with our auditor here recently to see what his comfort level was and what Chuck Krieger, for those of you who have been around here for a while, you guys know Chuck. I asked Chuck for his opinion. I looked at other neighboring school districts to see where they're at. So I am recommending that we set the high end of the small purchasing threshold to be $150,000. When we start to spend over that, that's when sealed bids occur. So that's my recommendation here. If I realize that this is what you're just seeing here for the first time tonight, so if you want to wait on that and talk about it some more, that's fine. If you're good.
So this hasn't been discussed in the committee?
We talked about it last Monday. At that time, I had said that the high end was $250,000. That's the highest amount we can go. And it's still called a small purchase, and I had said that to the committee on last Monday, but I'm walking that back, saying let's walk that back to $150,000, and I'm recommending that right now.
Eric, I'll make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second it.
Do we have to waive the first reading?
We have to waive the second reading?
Second reading.
Waive the second reading? Okay, so we'll start with that first. Would you like to make a motion and second to waive the second reading?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, so we'll be voting on waiving the second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we can take the motion to accept this policy as is. Do you guys want to re-motion?
Motion.
So Andy will motion,
Second.
Jill will second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
School store half credit.
So Dustin Lehman came to the last Student Learning Committee to update on various CTE issues, mainly at the high school. Two things that came forth from the committee to do an action item on tonight. The first one is to allow the students who are working at the school store to get a half credit, similar to students would get a half credit for work seminar for their work portion of it, or a youth apprenticeship program, which actually you can get more credits than that. But we're asking for a 0.5 credit in addition to the coursework for working at the school store for an hour of their day.
So Stephanie, you're saying you think this is a great idea for the kids to
Yes.
motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
I have a question. So each student works an hour every day.
Correct. Well, an hour on the periods that they have free. So it would
Okay.
be 3 times a week
Okay.
with the schedule that we have.
All right, so it's not
Yes.
just open at a certain time during the day?
Correct.
It's open all day?
Right. It's during the hour that they would have free to work in
Okay.
there, or before or after school when they could.
But
So-
there's coursework that goes along with it, which is why
Correct.
we're saying it should be eligible for a credit.
Correct. Half credit.
Who had the second on that? I'm sorry.
It
Is
was
that Andy?
Craig and then Andy.
Okay, thank you.
Then the second thing that came up from that committee report would be our ACP program. That's our Academic College and Career Planning.
Oh, wait, let me finish this
Oh,
motion.
I'm
We'll vote on
sorry.
this one, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, any other questions on the school store? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion
I
carries.
get lost
Go
in
ahead.
all
Sorry.
of it. Sorry. Okay, so we also talked about the Academic College and Career Planning and where that process was at. Again, this is a state requirement from DPI that we do this. MHS has done a great job of building a really solid program for our ACP. We are looking to make it now in the presentations the students do, that it is part of high school graduation, that those presentations are done. I do not see any students in our high school not graduating because of this, but we would like to, at this point in the ACP process, make it a requirement of graduation that they do their presentations on their college and career plans.
I move that we accept that.
What does ACP stand for?
Academic College and Career Planning.
So we have a motion by Cherry. I'll make a second. Any discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Kid was gonna fly.
We gotta do this.
They have to do it anyway. It's already a DPI thing, right?
Oh, you're locked in
Yeah.
now, buddy.
Um,
Yep, and now you're
welcome to
gonna
the
do
board.
it.
We did get to see some examples. I'm sure Dustin would be happy to send you some samples. They were very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll be doing it.
And then we'll move into unfinished business, and we'll start with superintendent's report.
Real quick, I just want to give you an update on our summer school program, which is thriving. Everything is going extremely well at Mukwonago High School. 1,160 4K through 8th grade students are attending our summer school program, so it's really been a wonderful success. Eagleville finished up their summer school program last week, thanks to Art for helping out with the hot dog grilling and distribution. We appreciate it. So another fantastic E3 Eagleville Summer School program. In addition to those 1,160 4K through 8th grade students, we have over 300 Mukwonago High School students also doing summer school programs at MHS. So a lot of kids at MHS for these next several weeks. And then I know that you have been getting a number of questions and comments about critical race theory, and I just want to make sure that you're aware, starting next month in July at the Student Learning Committee, we'll come back with a social studies lesson on critical race theory. We'll explain what we believe critical race theory is and why it's in the news quite a bit and why it's on people's minds. So we'll start those discussions in July.
Well, I was going to bring that up for my board president
Oh,
report, so
by all
that's good.
means.
I'm glad you covered it so that people know that we will be looking at it, discussing it, seeing what it is, what it's not, what it looks like, and if we've got it, and we don't. But we want to be on top of it. So, legislation and correspondence.
Yeah, so in your packet, you probably noticed that we do have a number of letters. Congratulations to Parkview, Clarendon, Eagleville, Prairie View, and Rolling Hills. And Kayla and Michael mentioned some of those schools in the student rep report. They have been recognized by the RTI Center and the PBIS program for their great work improving student achievement and improving student behavior with their various programs at the gold, silver, or bronze level. So congratulations to those schools. We also have a couple letters from the Classic 8. Our tennis program, our boys tennis program, was recognized for the Sportsmanship Award, the Conference Sportsmanship Award. And then we also had several students that were named Scholar Athletes for the Classic 8 Conference. So we should congratulate those students. We also want to congratulate Tim Spurstead, who's the building manager at Rolling Hills. The Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials, WASBO, has a program, a facilities manager certification program that Tim recently completed, and so he deserves congratulations. And then we also want to congratulate Ella Newman, one of our Parkview Middle School students, who had written letters to both Coca-Cola and Pepsi expressing concern about the amount of plastic that they were using, the amount of plastic that was ending up in the ocean. And then you can see that Pepsi actually wrote back to her. And so her science teacher at Parkview, Jen Cotterone, shared that letter with us and said it was real impressive that Pepsi actually wrote back. And so you can see what they're doing to reduce the amount of plastic that they're producing with their soda.
Yeah.
So we thought that was neat.
Yeah.
Any board member questions?
So the next learning committee meeting is
Monday, July 12th,
Monday, July 12th.
at the district
And
office.
because I know we're going to have some questions on
Yep.
CRT, and that would be a great place
Yep.
for anybody that's got a problem with it to be, correct?
Absolutely. 6
Excellent.
o'clock,
Thank you.
6 o'clock,
7.
7 o'clock, after the,
Oh, that's right. 7 o'clock. Thank you.
July 12th, that's...
Any other questions? Okay, then I will take a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Cherry, could you roll call us out, please?
Erica Connor?
Yes.
Mary D. Moore? Yep. Joel Frederick? Andy Menke?
Yep.
Art Schneider?
Yeah.
Vito Schwartz?
Yep.
Craig Verts? Jill Warner? Here. Sherry Winchowski? Here.
Okay. Does anybody need 2 minutes? We good. Take 2 minutes real quick. Sean, are we staying in here?